Good morning and welcome to this session of DESTICON. We are not Airbnb, so what are we? My name is Alex Huesner.
And I'm Annie Holcomb.
And we together are Alex and Annie, the Real Women of Vacation Rentals, which is a podcast about vacation rentals, short-term rentals, tourism, and all things hospitality. And today we are joined with an all-star cast of some of the best and brightest minds and great friends of ours within the industry. So going around the table, we have David Krauss, who is the founder of Rent Responsibly.
Thank you so much for having me. I love spending time with the real women of the vacation rentals, and I'm glad to share this story with a new audience.
You and John are the real men of vacation rentals today.
Yeah.
You said it.
Yeah.
You said it.
And Lauren Madewell, who is the operations manager for Antebellum's Cabin Rentals. Lauren, welcome.
Thanks, y'all. Happy to be here.
And John Flanagan, who is the director of sales for Guesty. Good to see you, John.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a new title. I'm like 6 days into that role, so still very much so getting used to hearing that out loud.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So this panel is not meant to be a discussion on why Airbnb is bad. What it's meant to do is kind of help us foster the conversation of how we define vacation and short-term rentals. There's been a lot of discussion around, what are we, who are we, what do we want to be? And unfortunately, because so many people do use the platform Airbnb and it is just a platform, it's kind of taken over as in the lexicon of what vacation rentals are. People say, I stayed at an Airbnb, I rented an Airbnb. And then the narrative becomes, well, Airbnb is bad. And then you drill into the and that's where we get into regulation conversations. And so what we wanted to do was have a larger discussion with a property manager. That would be Lauren, with Dave, who kind of speaks into the what is it? The regulations and the discussion around regulations, and then actual technology that can kind of help all of the pieces of the puzzle work together. So wanted to get a take from each of you. And I think we can start with Lauren. If you define vacation rentals and you own a vacation rental business and manage it, what would you say vacation rentals and short-term rentals is?
Well, goodness gracious, big question. So we are a almost 30-year family-owned and operated company in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. So in the Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge area, which is a very well-established destination market and vacation rental market. And as a professional vacation rental company, we are a property management company. We are a hospitality company and a property management company. We are hospitality with our guests, cleanliness, kindness, communicative, being there for them when they need us, when they need help in their property. And then we are property management for the homeowners and the properties themselves, organizing the laundry, the maintenance, the inspections, the updates, repairs, general upkeep, working with local vendors to get work done and build decks and stuff like that. And then also helping the homeowners with their taxes and their statements, and just and basically allowing them to make truly passive income. You know, if you're hosting your property on Airbnb, that's not passive income. It's truly passive income. We take care of the guests, we take care of the property, we take care of everything.
And I would say that's one of the misconceptions that has happened in the last few years since Airbnb has become such a behemoth in our industry, is that vacation rentals are this passive income stream that you can just buy a property and you just find somebody to put on Airbnb for you. But we all know that's not the case, right? Like it's a hospitality business. It is a logistics and an operations business that no company is ran exactly the same. Each market is different. The dynamics are different from the CVB to the municipality to how you all operate. So there's a lot of complexities that are overlooked. And that when we say we're not Airbnb, we're trying to establish that short-term vacation rentals and professionally managed operators, we're good stewards of tourism, and we want to work with DMOs and CVBs to help the communities in which we operate.
Airbnb wants to be us.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that goes to the point, Airbnb, again, defining that so people understand. Airbnb is not a business of managing, operating, servicing the rentals. They are just a listing site. But what we've fallen into is going back to those people that think it's a passive income stream, is that they can just, again, low barrier of entry, pop your unit on a site, it rents. There's no service that has to be there. And so it's become the definition of what people expect about what they get with a vacation rental. I'm not going to have service. I'm just going to go check in, passcode in in a town somewhere, never going to see a human being. And vacation rentals and really short-term rentals, professionally managed, there's hospitality at the core of that. And so I think that's where we need to pull that part of the conversation out and understand that Airbnb is fine. We're not telling people not to use it. People need passive distribution, but they are not the definition of us. We need to better define what we are on their site and on other sites so people understand that we're like hotels in that we are giving you hospitable service. We want to make sure your room is clean. We want to make sure that you have the amenities that you need to enjoy your stay, whether it be business or, it be a family vacation. And I think that's where we've run into, again, some muddy waters and have caused within specific communities, but it's definitely spread. And I think, Dave, is that the misconception of what the rentals are is causing friction within local communities and municipalities. And so there's been a lot of, I say, a knee-jerk reaction to try to put in some regulations. And some of it has been regulations before there's ever been a problem because they heard another community had a problem. And so your organization, tell us a little bit about what you guys do at the market level. And obviously you're doing it in a larger level, but you're really getting in there to try to get all the key components of a market, including the DMOs, which is a lot of this audience here today, to be involved in the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And I think just the fact that this conversation is happening at DESTICON, Jen in the past session, the openers talked about responsible disruption, right? And I think that responsible piece, it's in the company Rent Responsibility's name, but what we do is we're a community building and education platform for local short-term rental communities. And so that community isn't just the owner and the operator, if there's a third-party manager, but it's also the service providers. It's all the ancillary small businesses that go into making these operations run. These are generally small businesses. 70% of short-term rental owners own one property, and 54% of managers manage less than 10% of properties. There's about 20,000 management companies, about 600,000 hosts across the country. That's a lot of people that are all doing similar things in their destination that historically have just been disconnected from one another on the local level. And so our goal, our mission at Rent Responsibly is to help those people who are all doing either the same thing or reliant on each other, whether it's a contractor, handyman, cleaning business. Lauren probably has a roster of 40 vendors that she uses. They're all contributing to this really emergent and responsible accommodation option that has been longstanding in many cases and feels new in other cases. And so our goal, Rent Responsibility's goal, is to ensure that community can engage in those conversations proactively. Right. We've set up actually webinars where the local short-term rental alliance, which is generally what these groups end up being called, and the DMO, and they're introducing each other to, hey, you're paying HOT. This is where it goes. Oh, you have these community guides and these calendars of events. And so then the short-term rental community is saying, amazing, like that's information I've been looking for. So we're really all about collaboration. Oftentimes these are in city hall conversations where the regulatory question comes up, but the long future is really bright when we're connected. And that's happening about as rapidly as any other phenomenon in this industry.
It's a challenge though, Dave, right? I think you've seen this play out in many areas that sometimes the CVB, you have to maintain a certain level of the relationship has to be there with the municipality, and you have to be careful about what they're trying to push versus what the municipality is trying to push. I'm speaking from my experience here. I'm in the Myrtle Beach market, and I just ended my term as the chair of the board of directors for our CVB. And, we very much a tourism driven market, but we also you're in that kind of hard part of the market where you're trying to guide things that are going to be good for the destination, but you have to really be careful about those relationships. And right now in our area and several other areas, it really just is more about education, that there could be some things coming down the line for us that if Airbnb restrictions were to be put in place in Myrtle Beach, a lot of our municipality people do not realize that would wipe out the entire inventory of Myrtle Beach, because the properties that look like hotels, they are individually owned homeowner properties. So technically those are Airbnbs, but that's not who they're going after. I mean, they're going after the bad apples, right? And I think you had a really good story or a comparison on the Ford Model T that I was wondering if you could share that with the audience.
You don't have to twist my arm with that one, Alex. I feel like I might name my first child Ford Model T. It comes out of my mouth so often.
Ford's a great name.
What's that? Ford
is a great name.
Let me put that on the list. I got a running list here.
Sure, his wife won't agree with that.
So here's what it looks like. 1908, the Ford Model T rolls off the assembly line onto a road that was occupied primarily by horses and buggies and had always been that way. It just was never contemplated that these rules needed to exist until the automobiles were already on the road. And went from 200,000 to 2 million automobiles in 7 years. If you look at the curve of the adoption rate of the automobile 100 years ago and short-term rentals from 2010 to present, it's very similar. So what we're in is this period of, you've had the disruption, and now the responsible reaction needs to happen, where people do show up, they introduce themselves. Hi, I'm a responsible driver, so to speak. And the rules need to be made for responsible folks. And the reality too is there weren't rules to get the irresponsible drivers off the road until there were friction and these conversations happening. So we're in that moment right now. It is the 1920s and it is the 2020s. It is a mirror. And so what happened to get us out of that traffic jam, excuse all the puns, I can come with them real hot if you want the automobile puns. But to get out of the jam, what we need to do is, get in a room and discuss, because the automobile drivers, the short-term rental owners, hosts, and managers, the Laurens of the world, know how the automobile works. They know how the machine works. And then the government has the set of issues, and then there's all the other stakeholders. So it doesn't happen in silos. And that's why being organized as a community is what the automobile enthusiasts did. It turned into the American Automobile Association back then, but they were the best at distributing education, helping find the right solutions, and everybody started working together. But it took a while then. We just don't have that much time because these conversations are now.
Absolutely. So, John, why don't you interject some of your knowledge from the technology side on all of this and how you see things?
Well, sure. I think the most fascinating thing that I've been able to witness over my 10 years in this industry is that when all of us on this panel joined the industry, Airbnb was very much so just getting started, and some of us even preceded Airbnb being a real thing. And so when we talk about we are not Airbnb, then who are we? I know that Lauren has some input on what is a real professional property manager look like, and how is it different, how is it better, and I can't wait for her to share that with our listeners today. But from my perspective on the technology side, it's been fascinating to see the growth in number of vertically specialized technologies that are available to operators like Lauren, and it's been just as equally fascinating to see the number of tech companies that have failed in trying to be a painkiller and solving things in the wrong way. I think if we're not Airbnb, then who are we? Well, in our perspective, Airbnb is just a listing site, as Annie mentioned. So I do a little social experiment sometimes. When people ask me what I do for a living, I say I work in vacation rentals or short-term rentals. And they say, oh, like Airbnbs? And I say, no, like Verbos. And they say, what do you mean? And so I had to go through the whole thing of explaining that a vacation rental and like Airbnb is just a tech company, and VRBO HomeAway is just a tech company. Expedia is just a tech company. And so there's this full suite of tools that real professionals use, like distribution tools or channel managers, as they're called, to be able to distribute their inventory on Vrbo, on Airbnb on Booking.com, Expedia, Hopper, Wimstay, the list goes on and on. There's so many options for how you can get your brand out there. But on the flip side, there's just as many tools that allow that property manager to manage that guest throughout the entire stay and afterwards. There's suites of tools to help them manage the property before, during, and after the stay. There's rigorous cleaning standards that most people aren't aware of, cleaning standards that are more strict than what's necessary in a hotel, things that have cost. Sometimes the normal traveler that is not educated in what we do in our industry is, Airbnb is $50 a night for this unit, but I've got a $400 cleaning fee. Well, yeah, I think some of that is some like amateur operators taking advantage of being able to do whatever they want on Airbnb. But sometimes there are legitimate cleaning costs that have to happen because your unit is being completely deep cleaned. It's a full house. It's not just a hotel room. And so having the suite of tools available to not only automate where possible, but to be able to be extremely stringent where needed as well, for both managing the guests and the unit throughout the entire experience, is something that has evolved greatly and improved significantly over my 10 years in the industry.
That's great. Lauren, can you shed some light on, again, you're an actual user of technology, a professional manager, and talk about how the technology plays into the professionalization of your business and how it helps you manage your business and provide, again, going back to what the core of what we are, that you can provide to your guests.
Sure. So I think our tech stack is actually incredibly simple, but that is because the property management software that we use, Brightside, is basically all in one. If a lot of companies might be using a property management software, but in order to do accounting, they have to add more tech. In order to do property management like maintenance visits, inspections, work orders, they have to add more tech. My property management system, Brightside, does reservations, accounting, marketing, all the work orders, the time clocks, schedules. It does everything. So we have our calendars. We have our website, antebellums.com. We do 85% of our bookings directly on antebellums.com. It's like 4-point-something% is Airbnb. Thank you. 5-something is Vrbo, and then 4-something is SmokyMountains.com, which is like the Airbnb and Vrbo of our Smoky Mountains market. So we have property management software that does. It's linked to our website. We do direct bookings, but we also have direct integrations with Airbnb and Vrbo, so that whatever happens on either of those listing sites in real time, it populates on our calendar and on our website. That's been really, really nice. That's the power of Brightside. But as well, like I said, we have a whole maintenance section where we can write work orders for every single property. We can assign it to maintenance, inspections, housekeeping, various managers. We can assign it to vendors and email that off to vendors because we've built their info into our system. And it just gives us, it allows us to see what's going on for every single property. It shows it when it's new, in progress, when it's complete, when it's on hold, and when it's a priority. And we also, our property management software gives our homeowners a homeowner portal so that they can log in and see their reservations and their income month by month and see what work orders are going on and ask questions about it. So it allows our homeowners some transparency. I don't know if every company offers that, but we do. They can also make bookings that way. Like I said, we can do our accounting. We do our homeowner statements on our property management software. We have an integration with Key Data to access industry and market data so that we can figure out the best pricing and see the trends that are going on. And then also, if we're talking to I used to call them potential homeowners, but I'm calling them hopeful homeowners now. One, I love alliteration, but then two, it's like willing them to do business with them. But if they want to know, like, when you're talking to a real estate agent, the real estate agent's going to tell them you can make this much. In reality, right. You can make this much, and Key Data is going to be like right in the middle somewhere. So you can run these reports. And show them to the homeowner. This is from Key Data, but this is offered on Brightside. You can show them to the homeowner, graphs, charts, all of it, numbers with comparative similar properties, and they can see for themselves that industry data. They can see it. And I like to say I give conservative estimates. Like, I'd rather over deliver. So I always see that. And then I'm like, I don't know, I would budget for maybe 10,000 less than that or whatever I think is fit, because I can access my historical data. Because of Brightside, I can see what properties bring in through all the past years. We've been with them been Brightside for like over 10 years. We're almost a 30-year company. So I have 10 years worth of data on them, but anything before 10 years, it's irrelevant anyways.
Right.
Yeah. So am I answering your question? So
yeah, I wanted to interject. I've got a couple things right there, that I think will be relevant to this audience. So the first part is on the key data side. And I think that's really interesting what you pointed out about the realtors. And we see this a lot too, that a realtor will tell these hopeful homeowners, and I love that term, that what their projections of what they think they're going to make are normally vastly higher, right, than what you're seeing in your key data projections. Dangerous thing, no matter what market you're in, because you've got people that they're thinking they're going to get a certain amount of return. And really what we've seen in our market, if you go on YouTube, you can see a whole new breed of realtors that they are pumping out videos like crazy saying, in order to make your return, you have to have less than 20% commission, basically steering away these new buyers from using professional companies. And that's a problem right there, right? It's okay for people to do it on their own as long as they're operating in a way that still mirrors the professional tactics that you guys would do and any other professional operator. One other thing I wanted to mention also that's interesting and I think relevant for this group is Gatlinburg is obviously a very well-established tourism market, similar to a Myrtle Beach, the company that I was previously at, Condo World. We were 95% booked direct. So, 85, 95%. You don't hear numbers like that it very, very rarely. Topics of conversation at our vacation rental conferences are mostly about how to get more direct bookings, because we all, as managers, we want to get guests off of booking on Airbnb, because when they book an Airbnb, the product becomes an Airbnb. We want them to say that they're staying with Antebellums, that they're staying with professional property management company, not that they're calling us one thing. And I wanted to ask you, Lauren, can you explain to the audience what are some of the problems that you have with the Airbnb bookings? Like, why would you prefer to have a direct booking? And through direct bookings, hopefully CVBs can help drive some of those. So that's kind of where that conduit comes together.
Okay. Frankly, every bit of it is concerning. So you're getting their name and you're getting their cell phone number. Thank God you're getting their cell phone number, but you're getting a masked email. You're not getting their address. You have no way to verify their identity. You're trusting that this listing company, this tech company, Airbnb, has fully verified their identity and said, it's cool, everything's good. That is just truly trust. And then sometimes you see these names come through these reservations and you're like, that's a username. Like that's not a name, that's a username.
Right.
It seems so crazy. So you're not getting all our information. You're trusting Airbnb in your property. Like you don't even get to you just don't know that guest. You don't know that guest. You don't have their information. You don't know their identity. And scams do happen on Airbnb. So, and because you don't have their email address, gosh, if you're trying to email them out stuff that that I'm emailing all my guests, like it censors my information. It censors like phone numbers and all sorts of stuff if the email even goes through. So it's censoring the information I'm trying to provide the guests so that they have the best stay possible. Like that guest deserves to trust me. I've done everything to earn that guest trust. That guest deserves to trust us as well. And how could they do that if my contact information is being censored? And then Airbnb wants all communication to happen through the Airbnb messaging app. And while I do understand like why that is, and it's really worked to my advantage on a few occasions to have it all documented in-house like that. It's not the convenient way to get a hold of your property manager if you need something immediately. And so it's incredibly important to have all your information in the cabin for the guests to see when they finally get there, so that if they find themselves in a situation where they need some comfort or they need some help or they're in an emergency, or who am I staying with? What's going on? Like
Right.
my information is there. Yeah. And then too, like even the simplest of things, rescheduling, cancellation, moving properties, adding a night, adding a pet fee. I have a problem in my cabin. Can you fix it? Or this thing is broken. I'm not going to get refunded for that. Like we've been doing this 30 years. I know exactly how to handle those situations and help those guests in a very timely and efficient manner. But Airbnb, unlike other listing sites like Vrbo, Airbnb actually wants like 360 degrees of involvement. So if anything comes up between you and the guest, Airbnb is like, oh, excuse me, let me get in there. I actually have my own opinions about how this should work out.
But with no way to actually help, right? No way to help. I just want to be listening and knowing what's going on.
I'm serious. No actual way to help. That's not being dramatic. No actually. Go ahead.
Lauren, I wanted to actually kind of interject here. So something relative to like you guys have been through this. Alex has been through this in Myrtle Beach. I live in the Panama City Beach market. So we go through natural disasters. And so when you have a channel, some channel partners are great to get in there and really help you when you have a problem. But to the point that like you're right there. When those fires happened, it's not like hurricanes where we could prepare for it. Those fires came up and they moved and you had to be able to react really, really quickly. So it's really important, again, knowing what roads are where, knowing where the emergency management services are, knowing the people at the destination marketing office, the Chamber of Commerce, all of these people in the local market that Dave is trying to bring to the table to have these conversations like that. That's where our definition is like, we are boots on the ground in the market, knowing all of the factors that could come into play so that God forbid something happens, we're there to help. Like your team is there to help people navigate through those where an Airbnb in this example would not be there to help you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like with the fires, if I couldn't get a hold of a guest, we would drive to their door and knock on their door and get them out of the house. And then two, we're friends with other companies in town. And so we would be texting each other like, I'm going to drive out to the Sky Harbor area. Do you have any properties you need me to check on? And they'll be like, awesome, I'm going out to Highway 321 in Gatlinburg. Let me know if you have any properties. And we're communicating that way and spreading out our resources and helping each other to save lives, lives. And it happens that way just with winter weather. Like we were not expecting a 9-hour snowstorm the day after Christmas. And it happened and it wreaked absolute havoc. And we did as much as we can. And there was still so little that we can do. I can't imagine hosting a property from states away, not being aware of the weather, getting those panicked phone calls and not being able to do anything for your guests. Like the guests deserve boots on the ground.
Dave,
what did Airbnb do to help you in that situation, Lauren?
Right. They didn't.
No.
Right.
I think this is Lauren. First of all, I love your passion for what you do because you are so emblematic of what the core is of our community. And that is that we look at it as co-opetition when you're working with your competitive companies, but it really is the local identity of that community is coming together. And that's what I'm really passionate about because I see it all over the country that when you guys have 5 or 6 or 10 strong, locally led, boots on the ground management companies, and then you're slapped a label from somewhere else on that group and it's referred to as something different than it is. You guys are a group of local hospitality providers that know those back roads, that work together, that provide the economic lift, that provide those guest experiences that really make the whole dynamic destination happen. And you're marketing that out too, right? So you are like boosting the DMO motion as well. And that's why when these things come together, I think it really is like the alchemy of a local community is super fuel for something like a DMO. And I think that when you have a campaign and you have a theme and you have an identity, that it is so powerful. We've seen it in Arizona. We've seen it in a variety of other places more recently where they just see it as a necessity and kind of part of the job nowadays to really be engaged. And that's if I'm whistling a tune, it's part of the job to be part of your community. And I think, Lauren, you're emblematic of that.
That means so much to me, David. Thank you.
And I think it's important, kind of dovetailing off of that, is that how you build your brand and how your brand becomes the ability for that brand to stand up on its own and stand out in the market. And so for the audience, this is DESTICON. It's about working with destination marketing organizations. And one of the things that we talked about with Jennifer Barbie and her team early on was that through COVID, a lot of these markets didn't realize the number of vacation rentals, short-term rentals that existed in their market. And what they found was that their ability to survive through COVID was really key. The vacation rentals was really key in making that happen. And so it's how do we bring all these people together who have been operating their hospitality business seemingly in the fringes in some of these markets, but they've always been there. They've been providing their hospitality, but maybe their brand hasn't been strong because they're small. They don't have a large number of units. They like the size that they are, but they need some marketing support. So one of the things this conference kind of is trying to tie together is how to utilize your destination marketing organization, whether it be your Chamber of Commerce or, like in Alex's case, the Chamber of Commerce DMO is kind of one entity. In Panama City Beach, it's two for us, but they work in tandem together. And I think, again, the technology by the vacation rental to the destination is going to help elevate the vacation rental. But if all these people aren't together in the conversation, like, none of us are going to win. So I would ask you, Lauren, you've done a really good job in building the Antebellum's brand, and you've done a lot of really creative things that haven't cost you a lot of money. They've just been creative and kind of in your face, and you've been using some of the social media tools that we have out there. But you work with your destination, and I think you mentioned in a post recently that you just started working with your Chamber of Commerce, like you're on a committee and you're working with businesses in the market. So how do you see the role of you as a business, but then the role of the destination to help elevate your business, but then vacations overall within the market?
Goodness gracious. Well, I feel like that. I don't know why I find that question so complicated, Annie. So, goodness gracious. As representing a cabin rental company, I just think it's so crucial to, ambassador of the Pigeon Forge Chamber of Commerce. There's going to be 20 different local companies that I'm the point of contact for the Chamber of Commerce, where I let them know, hey, this is all the stuff that you have access to. This is all the privilege that you have. Your community cares about you. Here's my contact information. If you ever have any questions, if I can help you with anything, like, holler. I'm here to help. I want you to feel cared for and supported in this community. And so as a cabin rental company, now there's 20 different businesses in town where I get to talk to them, to meet them, to get to know a little bit more about them. They get to know a little bit more about me. I get to have the conversation of, like, you do understand the difference between vacation rentals, professional property management, and Airbnb, right? And if they don't, I get to explain that to them and why I am an advocate for my community and an ally for community. I mean, here I am, here we're talking, but, like, we are different. We're here. We love this community. It's because of you guys why we thrive. But I get to meet them and learn what they do, and I can become a people connector and be like, you know what? I know a company who would really benefit from your services. Do you mind if I share your information, or I'm going to put you guys in contact? Or, you know what, I could really use your services. Or, I don't know, I can just be a people connector in town, and I'll be learning so much about so many different companies and so many different people that, like, I can just, have you heard of, do you know, I think you should know, and just keep us, like, just keep us tight knit, keep us a community, keep us feeling like neighbors, like a village, and we're stronger together. And I want to be, representing my cabin rental company as an ally and partner and friend to the community. That's just really, really important to me. Like, I obviously don't need the locals businesses. They're not booking cabin rentals, but it's important for them to know that a cabin rental company is working to take care of the community and is a resource for them if they need anything. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah. And I will say too, I think that's a really good point, and something that I think is often overlooked, how important it is for your other local businesses, even your local competition. Of course, you'll meet them through your engagements through the Chamber and CVB, but it's important because everybody who lives in a destination has family and friends that are coming to stay in that destination. And
Yep.
I'm from New Hampshire originally, and I've been in Myrtle Beach for 14, 15 years now. But I would say on a weekly basis, I get at least one person, and it ramps up around summertime, of people asking, I'm coming to Myrtle Beach. I know you're in tourism. Like, where should I stay? And that's not just me that people are asking from out of state. They're asking anybody who lives here, because who do people listen to the most? Their friends. And why do they listen to them? Because they trust them. So if they trust their friends, their family for their recommendations, and now you've made those connections with those businesses, and they say, instead of saying, oh, cabin on Airbnb, if they say, I know this girl, Lauren, and Auntie Bellums, and they're a great company. I mean, the power of that is so impactful. And I think that's a great message for CVBs to be taking to heart, and how you help your local vacation rental companies. I mean, encourage them to be like Lauren's, that want to get out there and organically make a lift within the destination. But my question for you would be, in your market, is the board primarily hotels, or like what does that makeup look like?
Yeah, in Gatlinburg and in Pigeon Forge, it's largely hotels, but a lot of hotels are family owned and operated as well. And so kind of same, but it is largely hotels from my own experience and just from what others have told me. But gosh, we're such a privileged market. Like, everything survives off of tourism. So we've just kind of been chilling, and but times have changed. Airbnb has changed everything. And so now we're like, oh goodness, we need to protect ourselves before people start overcorrecting and making regulations. So now we are starting to get involved, but as well, like, new blood is coming in. Younger, energetic, passionate people are coming in who want to get involved in everything and who are thinking long term. And a lot of there's a lot of retiring going on. A lot of people who have carried the property management companies through time are getting to retirement age. So it's timing. It's necessary for cabin companies to get involved in our area now. So we're just now starting to see a slow drip influx of it. But also, it's the new young blood needing to grow up a little bit and be like, yes, put the pieces together and get in. And I will say, like, it was before the pandemic, just trucking along, working, everything was great. The pandemic rattled everything. So then your everyday was just in the mud, dealing with the madness from the pandemic. And then now that we're kind of head above water again, that's when I realized just middle of last year, like, holy smokes, I need to get involved in my community. We've grown too big for our britches. We need to get some more control. We need to establish the narrative. We can't let Airbnb get the better of us. So I just realized, like, I need to get involved in my community. And I started putting it out there. So when somebody brought the ambassador program to me, I was like, yes, no looking back, I'm doing it. And then super cool too, on February 7th, it's called Hospitality on the Hill. Hospitality professionals from around the state of Tennessee are invited to the Capitol in Nashville, Tennessee, for a breakfast, and then mingling with the senators and the Congress people, and going to various sessions and stuff, which they were doing before the pandemic. And this is the first time it's come back since like 2019. And so I jumped at the chance of that. And so, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that. I was just going to ask Dave, because you're around all these people. What are you seeing in the areas that you go to between boards where they are hotel based, and what effect that has on vacation rentals to be able to get their voice heard?
Yeah, I would say that's an area where I'm learning a lot, and that's why I'm excited to be here, is to understand just how the decisions and the influence and those types of things flow through. What I can say I've learned is that when the vacation rental accommodation option is valued and seen as professionally driven, the conversation is generally different than when it's seen as like almost like an insurgent or a disruptive concept. And I think that's where there's an opportunity for that education and that conversation, not just for the responsible and the proactive and the Laurens of the world to go and meet and educate. Like, that's the opportunity. Just even clicking back to the opening session, I wrote it down because it kind of impacted me. Jen was talking about there's 3 types of change. There's slow, there's emergency, and there's opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so if you see the slow change in the space in vacation rentals in your community, I think there's an opportunity to, accelerate the involvement. Like Lauren's saying, I got to get involved. I don't want this narrative to get spun out of control. And then, but frankly, a lot of the times people are dealing it on an emergency basis. Right. The narrative is set. It's hard to walk it back. The kind of folks that have read, 3 headlines in 3 months think that everybody is driving, drunk driving, so to speak.
Right.
And I think that's fundamentally the area of opportunity, is to be proactive, not let this conversation kind of happen without engagement. But in terms of the CVBs and the boards and the DMOs, generally speaking, I think that, the more that accommodation option is valued and seen as a valuable contributor and a complementary activity, I think that's where the conversations are productive. And, we've seen some actually really good traction with folks who have gotten involved. We wrote an article about folks who are getting on the board, right? Mm-hmm. So why not get on the board? Why not get on a committee? Why not go show up to the office, introduce yourself, ask how you can be helpful to extend the message and help promote the destination?
Mm-hmm. And I think that goes back to, if you want to be heard, you have to be present. Yes. And for a long time, and for me, I can just speak to the destination that I've been in for 25 plus years, Panama City Beach. When the condominiums and the vacation rentals started to really emerge, there was a big pushback with the hotels. They were like, wait a minute, you're stealing our business, our market. All it did was just shifted the perception of the market. It brought in a whole new type of people. It brought in people that were actually vacationing a little longer, coming more frequently. The calendar for the entire destination extended. But I think it behooves not only the operator, as in Lauren in this case, to raise your hand and be heard, but also from the destination. Like, don't just listen to the same 3 people that you've been talking to for the last 25 years. Things have changed and they're constantly evolving. So from a destination standpoint, you have to constantly be out there and assess and listen, have your ear to the ground, talk to the players in the market, but also talk to new people in the market. Someone who might have 3 units, they might operate 50 in another market and somewhere else, and have a lot of feedback. And some destinations over the last, I'd say 5 to 10 years, have started putting a rental seat on their board. So it's something that's very focused, because again, you talk about the complexity of operation. I mean, there's nothing like it on the planet. It is very complex. Talking about tech stack, you're using something that, in a lot of cases is 27 different pieces. Lauren, you're very fortunate to have one that has a lot of it embedded in there. But, these operators they're operating on so many different levels of discipline. They're a technologist, they're an accountant, they're head of housekeeping, head of maintenance, real estate agents, financiers. They're doing all of these things where, as a hotel general manager, you do a little bit of that, but you're not doing all of it across miles and miles of a destination. And so I think that the complexity of the industry is a valued voice and should be heard on every destination market organization, whether it be on the board or having a separate subcommittee to bring more conversation to it. And again, Dave, to your point, like there's so much going on all over the place. Everybody's got to be involved and they just have to be heard, but you have to be present in order to be heard.
Yeah. And I think one thing too, why it's so important to have either a designated seat for a rental company on boards or just making sure that that's encouraged is, as this sector has grown within each of our communities, our CVB used to just look at STR reports, STAR reports, which that's not short-term rental reports. That's the true hotel reports, right? Mm-hmm. And I was on a task force a couple of years ago that they realized, okay, that's not indicative at all of what's going on in the vacation rental market. So we need to figure out what tool we need to be able to assess that data. And so they asked me to lead that. And I said, okay, well, key data was one that we looked at, and there were several others. This was a few years ago. But as we looked at that, we said, okay, they need that, but it's still really tough to then draw comparisons because you've got to layer the STAR data that we need for the hotels, but then also the key data, and really deciphering that's tough. And so when John, your background on that data side, you're kind of the expert in this, but how do you have any advice for CVB people on how they can really utilize data to help their organization grow?
Yeah, I do. Thank you for tossing that softball up for me. I think earlier I spoke a bit about some of the tools that the operators like Lauren have at their disposal. This is a good opportunity to talk about some of the tools that CVBs and DMOs have at their disposal in regards to short-term rentals. Now, I know that the target audience for DESTICON is typically a smaller CVB, a smaller DMO who might not have the big budgets to do all different things. And so that's okay. This stuff doesn't necessarily have to cost you a bunch of money. But let's first talk about data, right? So do you know how many short-term rentals or vacation rentals are in your market? If you don't know, then who's the authority in your market? Is it Airbnb?
Yeah.
You have an obligation to be the authority in your market. And so if you don't know, who does? All right. So beyond that, do you know who the best operators are? Do you know who the worst operators are? Do you know what the split is between professionally managed units and amateurs in your market? So one thing I think that I would impress upon anyone listening is that regulations are not a bad thing. We actually want regulations from both the supplier side and the operator side in our industry. The threat to what we're trying to do for travel and short-term rentals is restrictive bans and restrictions on short-term rentals. The reasons that those things come into fruition and happen is because of a lack of education on what a real professional operator does and a lack of regulation and standardization. So if you are not the expert in your market, in your destination, then who is? And that's the question I would pose to you first. So there are tools out there. Okay. There are tools like Transparent, where I used to work. There are competitors to them like AirDNA, like Key Data that Lauren uses. These are all companies that can give you an insight into what's happening in your destination, both historically and forward-looking from a short-term rental perspective. This is not just supply. It is also demand. It is also rates. For example, I can tell you that the macro number in the US is that average daily rates are up, depending on market, anywhere from 35 to 58% versus 2019, which is kind of our benchmark because COVID is kind of this weird anomaly for us, as we talked about. If you don't know that, who does? Okay. All right. So that's one thing. The other thing I would mention is this is maybe a kind of a bold prediction, but I think that from a tech side, there's something coming down the line that will be an opportunity for CVBs and DMOs. And I think if we are not Airbnb, then who are we? And if we are a destination and it is our intent to own the experience, then maybe we should be able to facilitate direct bookings as well through our destination site. And I think that maybe technology will enable that at some point in the future, to where you are not only obligated to, but incentivized by partnering with the operators like Lauren in your market that are the professionals, and giving you some aspect of control over not only the supply, but even the travelers who comes to your market. How do you market to them? How do you capture repeat guests? How do you differentiate versus your competitive destinations? And so I think that we will see tech that is driven towards DMOs and CVBs from the short-term rental side in the very near future that allows us to push this initiative forward in the right way with regulations, with professionals, in such a way that benefits everyone from the traveler to the operator to you, the destination.
John for president.
Yeah, that's really strong.
Well said.
Yeah,
well said.
Yeah. We've got 11 minutes left. I wonder if we ought to open it up to the audience to ask some questions. We also have some time to, talk through some of those.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
I haven't seen any yet, but if anybody does have any questions, please pop them in the chat and let us know. We're happy to answer them. And if you are afraid to ask, send them later, and we'll be sure to make sure get you proper answers.
Yeah.
In the meantime, John inspired an idea. How cool would it be if a community's chamber of commerce was like the Airbnb sort of platform, the booking platform for that community, in that you go to the chamber's site and it just tells you all the property management companies or the host companies, and it does it in star rating, right? It's not some convoluted way of a super host at the top and whoever at the bottom, from the 5-star going down, and that's the list. And you can kind of just see the companies at a glance and click on it, and it routes you to that company's website. that'd be so cool. And that'd be a way to control the narrative of like, this is vacation rentals, not Airbnb.
Let's dive into that, because I think that's a great topic for this audience, and one I definitely have experience on, and I think you can defend probably either side. And if anybody in the audience wants to chime in, this would be good. In our market, we've battled that. So our CVB, visitmyrtlebeach.com, it's a powerhouse website. It used to be our model. It was a pay-per-click model for us as tourism partners that we paid a lot of money. I mean, this is heavy advertising dollars. And what they ended up finding was, because they were so beholden to this pay-per-click model, that they had to generate the clicks for us, but they couldn't buy clicks from Google and be able to generate that ratio back. We had to change that model. And our thinking really became at that point, is the Chamber CVB's role to promote these, the hotels and vacation rental companies, or is it to promote the destination? And I think it's somewhere in the middle there. I mean, it's really supposed to be to promote the destination, but the sweet spot is when the properties and vacation rental companies, they work with the destination and you mirror each other. So if you look at advertising of a lot of the properties in our area, we are all very much in alignment with what the CVB is promoting. So it's more complementary, I guess, than it is direct, that they send us traffic for sure, and they promote us, but they are making sure that they keep their main goal is to promote Myrtle Beach and then get the people in the door that they want to come here, and then they will find us. But it's a really valid question, Lauren. And I don't know, it's a tough one. One thing that people always say is, when we talk about this, when's the last time that you went to go book an accommodation and you thought, oh, I'm going to go to the Chamber of Commerce, right? People don't really think that way anymore. But at the same time, there are CVBs that have, yeah. And it's like, I don't know that's, maybe we can shift it back to that. I'm not sure. That's a really good topic to unpack, but Airbnb is part of that, right? I mean, that's part of the problem, that it's hard for us, even as CVBs, even with big budgets, to change that narrative of where people think of to go book accommodations, when that's, not even just Airbnb. I mean, all the OTAs. I mean, that's really where a lot of those bookings come from. But curious, anybody in the audience, if they had feedback on that and what the sentiment is within their market. Jennifer had a question. She said, what's the best way for a destination to find out who their short-term rental leaders are?
So, Lauren, for you, I mean, just from my experience, it's, again, as long as the players are present, identify them. But how would you suggest a CVB DMO go out there and find out who those people are if they're not present? It's tough, huh?
Yeah. I'm just so new into this community involvement in this ambassador program. I genuinely don't know, but with time, I will have an answer for that.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, I'll make a suggestion, and then I want to throw it to Dave, because I know Dave has.
Yeah, Dave's got something.
I don't know. I would start with data. The first thing you would look at is by supply, who has the most available rentals in your market. I would start there. And then I would look for who's been the longest established. And then I would look for who has the most reviews and what is the quality of those reviews. And then from there, I would seek out relationships, and I would do so in such a way that someone like Dave could probably help facilitate with a wonderful educational platform driven to this.
Yep.
I'll just jump in that it's easier now than ever before.
Right.
I think the idea of a rental company not having a front door on the internet, their own dedicated website that's table stakes now. So the things I would, using the power of the internet, a couple of things you can easily do for anybody who's interested in doing that is search your destination plus vacation rental manager. Mm-hmm. And you will probably get a few names that you may even know, and maybe you didn't know they actually did that, but you've just seen their name around town. That's an easy one. I think the other thing too is if you go on Google and search the same terms and then go to the news tab, there are rental managers that are creating positive news. Maybe they have done a charity drive. Maybe they had a particular social campaign that celebrated something about your community. They're actively doing similar things to promote and attract attention to your destination positively. That news tab is actually really powerful. And if it's an article about, I don't know, regulatory discussion, who do they quote in the article from the vacation rental community? Because that's somebody who's willing to show up and speak out. And I think those are people that all communities should seek and embrace. And the last thing I would say is there are some really cool individual units that have their own social media handles. Mm-hmm. And so you can kind of work your way back. You might find smaller operators there. There's thematic units. There's other really cool stuff. I'll talk about some in my session after this, but it's short-term rental folks are very good marketers. Mm-hmm. So if it's kind of the intentionality to meet them, I don't think it'll be as hard as you'd imagine.
Yeah, I think to your point, Dave, like vacation rental operators, whether they're large or small, have had to be scrappy about their marketing. So they know all the levers to pull. They know all the creative ways to get it in front of people. And if you're not engaging some of that creativity, you're missing out on a really good opportunity to create some great things for the market. I would reference Lauren and what she's done with Antebellum. She's done some really cute, adorable, fun guest interactive videos, some things that she's put out on social media. So do check it out. Go to Antebellum's, go to their LinkedIn page, their Facebook page. You have a lot of really creative people at your door in vacation rentals. And again, because they don't have the budgets that a lot of these hotels or the larger brands of hotels might have to drive people to those properties, these guys have figured it out. They know what they need to do to draw people in, and they're a huge asset if you're not utilizing them.
Yeah, Lauren, you're kind of famous now, Lauren. You know that.
Yeah. Me and the bear.
I love it.
Yeah. If anybody's listening, guests love videos. They love goofy videos. Like I have a goofy check-in video that I send them on their check-in day to prepare them. Like, we try to make your cabin perfect. It's not. If you have issues, because issues happen, give us a call. It's real goofy. I have a goofy checkout video where I do the checkout list in a bear costume just to draw their attention, but to show them it's a checkout list. It's not a cleaning list. Airbnb has given a bad rap to these cleaning lists. It's a checkout list. Close the top on the hot tub. Put the thermostat down, put the dishes in the dishwasher. That's all I'm asking, Put the trash away and come get it, like those kind of things. Yeah. Managing expectations in a really goofy, personal way. And then it shows them a face to the company, and it makes it feel like, oh, they're there. That's who I'm talking to. And so when guests come and check in at the office, some people just look at me funny, and I'm like, maybe that's the video. I think they saw the video. It looks like they know me, but they don't know me. And so they're watching it. Yeah. And it has made the phone people call now with their issues rather than wait and leave it in a review, or people are doing their checkout list now because the video was fun. It was relatable. It just stuck in their brain. People love videos.
And that's great content for the CVBs to then be resharing onto their channels. If as a CVB, if you've got people like Lauren in your community that are out there and they're making their own content, that's a dream there.
Yeah. And pretty soon I'll start putting out videos where I'm just highlighting some local family-owned and operated companies, historical, new, but good businesses in the community. Like, just going to take video of it and just post it online and say, hey, if you guys want a pottery shop, here it is. If you guys want a pizza shop, here it is. Just freely supporting each other.
Yeah. And you're almost building your own little alliance there. I love that. I think there's so much value to it. And for any of the CVBs, even just to get started, if you're not in a lot of communication with short-term rental, vacation rental companies, form a short-term rental alliance in your community to bring those people together. And, magical things can happen when you bring competitors to the table together. Some of them probably know each other, some don't, but that could be a great way to get everybody talking. And then, they become more intertwined within the organization.
It's only made us stronger and more passionate, and we push each other to do better all the time when you bring competitors together. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you for bringing your wealth of knowledge. I think, again, being part of the destination conversation is really, really important. I'm going to say thank you for Alex and I for having us, the Alex and Annie podcast. Please check us out. Please visit Rent Responsibly, Antebellum's Lauren, and then John is with Guesty. It's a PMS that provides a great level of service to property managers.